What is your name and today's date?
I'm Manbir Singh, and today is July 26th, 2016. 15.
15.
I'm sorry. Do you want to do it again?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And how old were you in 1984?
In 1984, I was about 26 years old.
And what was your occupation at the time?
I was working as a sales rep for a paint company known as Goodless Narrowback.
And where were you in June of 1984?
June 1984, I was stationed in Bilaspur, MP.
And how and when did you hear about the violence?
The violence that broke out in June of 1984, I was actually traveling from New Delhi back to my town in Bilaspur on an official visit.
And is that when you heard the violence?
Yes, in the train while we were traveling, late in the evening, somebody told me that a huge violence broke out. It was coming in bits and pieces, and even the official information that was being broadcasted at that time, there was an absolute absence of the correct news, not even the incident as to what took place, and everything seemed very calm on the broadcast at least, but through other human beings and travelers and other sources, I could find out that this thing was happening and this already took place.
And why do you think the army attacked Darbar Sahib?
Well, it was brewing for a long time. We all knew something will happen, but not of this magnitude. We thought, they would cut off the utilities and force them to surrender, or do something on a smaller scale to compromise the situation and make them come out peacefully. Nobody imagined that this kind of military attack would take place, and that too in our holiest shrine of all, Amritsar Darbar Sahib. Nobody ever expected. Not only Sikhs, anybody else in other communities were also taken aback by the news.
And what was your reaction? What did you think and what did you feel?
I was in total dismay, hurt, and very emotional.
And when your area heard about the attack, what was the local reaction?
Well, the local reaction was of shock, and I did see some rejoicing by certain mobs here and there, but I could see that they had nothing better to do. They were all just political pawns, and they were siding with the different political parties and trying to suppress the minority. That was their intent.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what had happened and why it happened, but they were participating in these things blindly, following their leader as to whatever they were saying, they were doing it.
And after Darbar Sahib was open to the general public, did you go and visit?
Yes, we did. It was an emotional, very overwhelming sight, and nothing of this nature I ever experienced in my life. I heard a lot of older people, elders in my family, when they left Pakistan, but they also never imagined that things of this nature would take place in this country again. Obviously, it was a shock also in the beginning, and I could see the reaction of local people and other communities towards Sikhs was very negative, and they were pointing fingers and cursing, and we had to kind of stay on a low key and stay within the confines of our houses we didn't go out much at that time.
Did you, any family member or friend, become a target of the violence of 1984?
Yes, mm, I had a few friends in that area whose hair were cut forcibly, some were beaten close to death. Luckily, none of them died. But my parents and my family, they had a very flourishing business in Indore, where I come from, and that business was looted. They robbed the whole place empty. They burned down a lot of structure and our inventory, and at the same time, a mob with stones and other weapons, luckily no guns, moved towards our house. And my father, even though he was old at the time, he had a double barrel rifle on him. So he stood guard and fired quite a few shots in the air just to scare the mob. In doing so, not only he dissipated the mob, he also saved a lot of Sikhs, and a lot of even other people who were living around could have been targeted, because it's an influential community, so it becomes a target for the mob anyways. So he, in doing so, he, very bravely he stood up and took charge of the situation and saved a lot of Sikhs.
And who was committing the violence?
Mostly local political leaders, especially from Congress, not from BJP or any other party that I heard of or know of, but Congress for sure. And my brothers and father, they could recognize some of the faces, and they yelled out at them that, "Why are you doing this? We are friends." And their response was, "No, one of you killed our beloved Prime Minister, and we are out here to take revenge. So get ready for that." But fortunately enough, no damage was done to our residents and the whole community.
And what role did the police play?
Police just didn't respond, and I would assume that, given the magnitude of the situation and the event, they were probably preoccupied with other things. But in our town, I never heard that the police cooperated with the mob or anything like that, but they stayed away from the mob for the most part, and didn't do what they were supposed to do.
And did you continue to live where you were living after the violence?
Yes, until now we are still living there. Although my father and brother, they didn't feel safe there, so they kind of tried to move to Punjab and bought a place in Ludhiana, and they started a business over there, and they stayed in Ludhiana for about another 10 years before my father, he became ill, and they decided to move back. At that time, the situation was rather calm, so they decided to come back.
And have you spoken about the violence to anyone since 1984?
Yes, I have.
Did you share your feelings or experiences about 1984 with friends and family?
Yes, definitely.
Have you had nightmares or flashbacks about those days in 1984?
Oh yes, until now.
And did 1984 bring any changes to your outlook of your life?
Yes, not to take it for granted, and do the best you can to help each other and be a true Sikh.
Why, in your opinion, did all of this happen in 1984?
Mostly it was a political game that was being played out of New Delhi, as I understood it, and rightfully so. It has been justified so far that it was all for political gains and trying to suppress a community which won't bow to the demands and the desires of the High Command in New Delhi.
It has now been 30 years since 1984, and those responsible have not been brought to justice. Why do you think that is?
Again, Sikh community, even before partition, whatever I heard from my elders and the information out there, has been a target because of their jovial nature, because of their affluent status in the society, because of their hard work and happy-go-lucky nature and their bravery, and you name the qualities in a human being, we all possess it, and not that it should be taken as an egotistic thing, but it has been given to us by our gurus to live a life like that and do Naam, Simran, Seva, and help each other, help the community, help the needy, and save the oppressed. So we have been a big target because of our qualities, and also because of the way we look. People want us to assimilate in their kind of life, their way of life, without realizing what the Sikhs have done, that without the Sikhs, India would not exist. But they deny these things openly until today. They don't accept it. The sacrifices that our gurus have given all those years, and until now we are giving our sacrifices for the cause of humanity, they don't recognize it as a sacrifice. So we became a target, and it was a political vendetta against our community that took place that night.
30 years later, for the youngsters who did not live through this, what message would you like to share?
I mean, what can I say? We lost so many innocent lives, and I knew some of them then, because in our hometown, some of people were burned alive. And other places also, we lost a lot of lives, innocent lives. And it's heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, to say the least. And it kind of like shook my faith in the community as a whole, not the Sikh community, but Indian community as a whole, as to can we trust them again and be a part of the society where we grew up and lived all our life. And it, still I have some bitterness because justice has not been served yet, and those who were responsible, nothing has happened to them, and they haven't been brought to the justice. And a lot of victims who could have been helped and at least given a fresh start in life, they were left to fend for themselves, and their lives were ruined forever. There was no emotional support, no financial support, no legal support, no justice support, no political support, and our voices were doused by the majority voices, which is mainly Hindus in India. And until now, even though we have good representation in all the houses there, still they are turning a blind ear and an eye to our situation and our demands.